She lived on Ellis. And then when we moved, we also lived on Ellis again, but we lived further south in a better neighborhood. So I say it was kind of a two-way street because it was two worlds. My grandmother's home was the home of safety. And then at home, I never knew when these situations of physical abuse would take place and me having to witness that as a child. It wasn't until my ex-husband said that he was thinking about leaving our marriage that I even realized that that was even traumatic to begin with. It's like my body had been holding it all those years. And as soon as he said he was thinking about leaving, and I realized my daughter was 11 at the time, and I was 11 when my father ended up leaving the household. And it's like something in my brain switched, and everything that was traumatic that had happened from childhood up, it all came to the forefront when my ex-husband said he was getting ready to leave. But yeah, so like I said, it was two worlds because whenever my dad became abusive, my mom and I would be packing like overnight bags and we were gone to my grandmother's house. And like I said, she lived in the projects in the era, like I said, where everybody was, it was very impoverished. But the thing that held that community together was love. And it's like each of the families, they had the grandmothers that focused like they were the pillars of the family. You know what I mean? They were there to hold everybody together. That also kind of became like the impetus for me writing, digging deep down in those roots, because I wanted women to be able to not be ashamed of what home looks like. You know what I'm saying? Even if home was like an impoverished area, but the way that love was displayed, the way that makes you feel good inside, that combines all of your culture and experiences and that type of thing, and even though we were living in an impoverished situation, that was never our focus. I like to think of my grandmother kind of like how the Bible talks about the widow of Zarephath with Elijah. You know, there would be some days you would hardly see anything in the refrigerator. But I promise you, by the end of the day, when it was time for dinner, we had this full cooked meal and we never went hungry. And my grandmother, because she's from the South, as far as like the Southern states,
Right.
originally from Opelousas, Louisiana, but then moved to Memphis and stayed there for several years until my mom was 12. So, but my grandmother being from the South, she knew how to make food stretch. You know what I'm saying? And so food was a part between food and the love that she showed with her acts of service. And then our culture and dancing and music, that was like our whole world. I loved competing in spelling bees and oratorical competitions because I was always like the type that was just academic. And so that's what really, between my grandmother's house, school, and going to church, those three places, that those were havens for me.
It sounds like lots of peaks and troughs in terms of your upbringing. I love the fact that your grandmother's place was a place of safety for you. Also, where you were nourished and cherished and looked after as well. That's really coming across in what you're saying. But tell me, in the backdrop of that, you mentioned music. What kind of music kept you sane during those periods?
Contemporary gospel music. And then when it was like over at my grandmother's house, we listened to a lot of like the Motown music, because even now I'll sing some songs. And over the years, I would sing them, even in my 20s. And some of my coworkers would say, well, how do you know that song? That song is way older than you. I said, I'm telling you, my one aunt in particular, she